Om Namah Shivaya.
Namah Shivaya.
Om Sada Shiva Samarambha
Samarambham
Shankaracharya
Madhyamam
Asmadacharya Paryantam
Asmadacharyaparyantam
Vande Guru Parampara.
Paramparam.
Om Sahana Bhavatu
Bhavatu
Sahana Bhunaktu
Sahanau
Saha
Bhunaktu
Veeryam Karavavahai
Virvavahai
Tejasvinavadhitam Mahavedvishavahai
Tejasvinavadhitam Om
Shanti
Om
Shanti
Shanti
Shanti.
Shanti.
Okay, so we are now looking at the 215th topic number 215, and we saw in the last class that we were discussing Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So here he quotes in support of that. So we will read Taduktam
Taduktam
Laye Sambodhaye Chittam
Laye
Lai
Sambodhaye
Sambodhaye
Chittam
Chittam
Vikshiptam Shamayet Punaha
Vikshiptam
Vikshiptam
Shamayet
Sakashayam Vijaniyat
Sakashayam Vijaniyat
Sampraptam Na Chalaye
Sampraptam Nachalaye
Naswadedrasam
Naswadedrasam
Tatra Nisanga Prajnaya Bhave
Tatra Nisanga Prajnaya
Okay, then one more is there. Yatha Deepo Nivatastaha
Yatha Deepo Nivatasaha
Ningate Sopama Smrita Iti.
Nindate Sopama Smrita Iti.
So you have to recall the 4 obstacles which we had talked about in a few verses earlier, a few topics earlier. And Sadananda is now quoting Gaudapada, Karika and support. Gaudapada is Shankaracharya's guru. So he is quoting one Gaudapada Karika, which is basically a commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad. So we'll see that when we come to the Upanishad, but here he quotes. Gaudapada talks about the 4 obstacles and how to handle them. So he says, Laye, when the mind is in sleep, what should you do? Chittam Sambodhayet. One should wake up the mind. Very simple. So Laya was the first obstacle, if you remember. The second obstacle, Vikshiptam. So he says, Vikshiptam, when the mind is wandering, Shamayet Punaha, one should quieten the mind and Punaha, bring it back to abide in the Atma. Then Sakashayam. Sakashayam is the state of when the mind is in a stupefied state. When the mind is in that state of Kashayam, Vijaniyat, one has to just wait. Because we saw in the last class that Kashayam is a state where the mind is in the grip of some very strong emotion, a subconscious emotion. And since it is subconscious, you can't really consciously take any action about it because you don't know what emotion it is. And therefore, Vijaniyat, here you have to just be a Sakshi. Just look at it and wait for the subconscious to release the mind. So that is an interesting point of view, that if you are in the deep state of stupefaction, when the mind is being stunned into silence or stunned into non-action, then nothing much can be done. You have to wait for your subconscious mind to release the mind. Then only it will be available to you. And sampraptam na chalayet, when the mind is quietening down, na chalayet, you should not consciously disturb the mind again because it's quietening down. Let it be quietening down slowly. And he says some other thing also. Na swada yet prasam tatra. Do not look for that swadam, that experiential pleasure you don't look for at that point of time. How? Nisangaha prajnaya bhavet. Use your discrimination and understand that any pleasure which you experience is only reflected pleasure, pratibimba ananda, and that is not the real you. So in that meditation of yours, you have to recognize that the ananda which I am experiencing is Pratibimbananda, and therefore you should renounce that also. And therefore he quotes from Bhagavad Gita also, Yatha Deepo Nivatastaha Nengate Sopama Sprita. And that is the state of the mind. Just as the mind is just as a lamp will not flicker in a windless place, in the same way, the mind of the yogi, which is free from these four obstacles, will be free from any moment. And that is the example given, like a flame which is protected from the wind. That example is used by Krishna for the comparison of the mind which is in deep concentration. And here we have to accept, we have to understand that deep concentration as Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So with that, the chapter number 5 is over. Now we go on to the last chapter, chapter 6. And what is the topic of chapter 6? We will read topic 216. Atha Jivan Mukta Lakshana Muchyate.
अथ जीवन्मुक्तो लक्षणमुच्यते.
So you can understand. Atha, now, Jivan Mukta Lakshanam, the indicators of a Jivan Mukta, Uchyate, are being described. This is the introduction to this 6th chapter. And now we will look at topic number 217, which is the expansion of that. Jivan Mukto Nama
जीवन्मुक्तो नाम
Swaswarupa Akhanda Brahma Jnanena
Swaswarupa
स्वस्वरूप
Akhanda Brahma Jnanena
Tada Ajnana Badhana
Tada
Tada
Ajnana
Ajnana
Badhana
Badhana
Dvara Swaswarupa Akhanda Brahmani Sakshat Krite
द्वारा
Dvara
स्वस्वरूप
Swaswarupa Akhanda Brahmani
Akhanda
Sakshat
Brahmani Sakshrute
Ajnana Tatkarya
Ajnana
Ajnana
Tattva
Sanchita Karma Samshaya
Sanchita Karma
Sanchita Karma
Sanchita
Samshaya
Viparyayadi Namapi
Yayadi
Viparyayadinamapi
Namapi
Badhitvat
Badhitvat
Akhila Bandharahitaha Brahmanishtaha
Akhila
Akhila
Bandharahita
Bandharahita
Brahmanishtaha.
Brahmanishtaha.
So he is describing the Brahmanishtaha. You can understand Akhila Bandharahitaha, free from all bondages. That person is Brahmanishta. And who is he? The person who has Aparoksha Atmajnanam, a direct knowledge that I am Brahmani has. And therefore the Ajnanam about that particular subject, who is he, has been destroyed. So and here he says, not only is the Ajnanam destroyed, with the Ajnanam, Ajnana Karyam is also destroyed. Any product, Karyam is a product, Ajnana Karyam, products of Ajnanam are also destroyed. Just as when the rope Ajnanam is destroyed, what is destroyed? The rope snake is also destroyed. Remember this rope snake, the Rajju Sarpa, is a Karyam. It's a product of rope Ajnanam. And therefore, when rope Ajnanam is destroyed, the rope snake is also destroyed. So he says, Jivan Muktaha Nama. Jivan Mukta is that person, Swaswarupa Jnanena. Swaswarupa means own real nature. Swarupa is real nature. Swaswarupa, his own real nature. Jnanena, he has understood. And what is that he has understood? Akhanda Brahma. He is nothing but Brahman alone. How has he understood? Through the process of Shravanam, Mananam, Dididhyasanam, he understood. And Tad Ajnana Badhana Dwara. Badhanam is destruction. Tad here refers to that Jnanam, Atma Jnanam. So Tad Atma Jnanena, having, and from that, through that Atma Jnanam, Ajnana Badhana Dwara, and through the subsequent destruction of Brahma Ajnanam. Ajnana Badhanam means destruction of Ajnanam. And therefore, Tad, that Brahma Jnanam, what has it done? Ajnana Badhanam has destroyed Brahma Ajnanam. And through that process, Dwara, what happens? Swaswarupa Akhanda Brahmani Sakshat Kutkrite. He sees the non-dual, invisible indivisible, but not invisible, indivisible. Of course, Brahman is invisible, but Akhanda, here is the word. Akhanda means indivisible Brahman as himself only. For Swarup, Brahmani Sakshat Kurute. Sakshat is directly available. Directly available is, the word here Sakshat Kurute refers to Aparoksha Jnanam, referring to myself, not as a third entity. So this Brahma Jnanam, what does it do? It shows me that I am that Brahman. So this is Sakshat Kurate, Aparoksha Jnanam he gets. And therefore, Ajnana Tatkarya, these products of Ajnanam, like what? Sanchita Karma, Samshaya, doubts, Viparyaya, wrong knowledge, Namapi Baditvat. Therefore, destruction of products called Sanchita Karma, Samshaya, Viparyaya, etc. are destroyed. How? Through this Aparoksha Jnanam. And what is the phalam of that? What does it leave him with? Akhila Bandharahitaha. He is free from all bondages. And therefore, he is called a Brahmanishtha. So you have to note here that when you say I am free from all bondages, it doesn't mean that my mind has stopped having thoughts. My mind can have different thoughts. All sort of thoughts can be there, can be problematic thoughts, non-problematic thoughts. But what is being conveyed here is that Akhila Bandharahitaha. He is free from the bondages of the mind also. So even if the mind has got thoughts, he has stopped judging himself on the basis of the mind. Very, very nice verse. When you become a Brahmanishta, remember, it doesn't mean that your mind goes into complete silence. It doesn't. And depends on how you have practiced. If you have been doing formal Patanjali driven samadhi, then you can have a reasonable control over your mind during the time where you are in samadhi. But when you are not, the mind is still functional because mind has got thoughts. The thing here is that you no longer judge yourself based on the mind, which means if the mind has a sad thought, you no longer say, I am sad. If the mind has a happy thought, you no longer say, I am happy. You say, my mind is having sad thoughts. My mind is having happy thoughts. But these are all reflections. I am not the happy thought or the sad thought. So I am not happy or sad. The mind may be happy or sad. That is a sort of that mental chatter that now comes into being. And then he quotes Shruti as support for all this. So we will read topic number 218. Vidyate Hridaya Grantihi
Vidyate Hridaya Grantihi
Yate Hridaya
Chindyante
Grantihi
Sarva Samshayaha
Chiryante Sarva
Yante Sarva
Samshayaha
Samshayaha
Chiyante Jasya Karmani
Kshiyante Chasya
Yante Chasya
Karmani
Karmani
Tasmin Drishte Paravare.
Tasmin Drishte Paramare.
Drishte Parapare.
So this is a quote from Mundaka Upanishad. Those who have done it, those who have been to the Upanishad will recognize the quote. It's from the second chapter. He says, Tasmin Paravare Drishte Sati. So Paravaram is another name for Brahman. So Tasmin Drishte Paravare, Tasmin Brahma Drishte Sati, having seen Brahman, having clearly understood Brahman, what happens? Hridaya Grantihi Vidyate. Hridaya Granthi is the knots in the heart. And what is the knot in the heart? Because knot joins two things together, right? What is this Hridaya Granthi joining? The knot in your heart. A knot is a knot made through a rope. A rope always joins two things together. What is joined here? In the heart, Anatma and Atma are mixed up. So joining of the Anatma and the Atma, the confusion about what is Anatma, what is Anatma, it has been joined together. And therefore, that's called a Granthi, a knot. And therefore, when Hridaya Granthi Vidyate, when the knots in the heart are broken, it means a clear understanding is there about what is Atma and what is Anatma. Another name for Hridaya Granthi is Avidya Granthi, the knot of Avidya also. Avidya is that knot because of which I join the physical body. I think I am the physical body, therefore I am aligned with the physical body. I join the physical body, and the physical body goes through samsara, and I own up that samsara. That is why avidya is the knot. So, thus, in other words, body identification, deha abhimanam, is the hridaya granthi. And once that is broken, what happens? Chindyante sarva samshayaha. All doubts are resolved. What are the doubts which we have? Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. What am I, this Jiva, doing in this Jagat? Why is Ishvara created? And these doubts can be about pramanam, the text itself, the teaching itself, or it can be about the prameyam, which is the what is being taught by the pramanam. So the prameyam is obviously Brahman or Atma. Pramanam, so there are two types of doubts. One is called pramana gata samshaya, doubts about the pramanam itself. And what kind of doubts are they? This Atma. To know about the Atma, my five pramanam, sense organs, cannot give me knowledge about the Atma. And therefore, do I require a separate pramanam or not? That is one of the doubts. Then second doubt can be, will this Shastra pramanam give rise to knowledge? So that can be answered only in one way. How do you know whether your eyes can see or not? You have to use the eyes, and then only you will be convinced that the eyes can indeed see. Similarly, if you want to know whether Shastra pramanam gives you Atma Jnanam, you have to study the Shastram. Then only you can decide whether it gives you Atma Jnanam or not. Unlike the eyes, which is pramanam internal to you, Shastra pramanam is the external pramanam. And since it is outside you, you have to have the necessary faith in the pramanam to allow that pramanam to operate. Because somebody teaching Shastram is not sufficient. You have to have the faith to go and sit in the class week after week, day after day, year after year. That requires Shraddha. Therefore, that is called allowing the pramanam to operate. That requires Shraddha in the pramanam. Then a further doubt can be, what is the Tatparyam of the Shastra? What does Shastra really say? Does it say that Atman is Brahman? Does it say Atman is part of Brahman? Does it say world is Mithya or Satyam? These are all questions which are answered by the Shastra. So these are all Shastra Gata Samshaya. Samshaya regarding the teachings of the Shastra. Then there can be Pramaya Gata Samshaya. That is the Samshaya, the doubts about the very subject of the Pramanam. What is the subject of Pramanam? Shruti says, I am Brahman. So, since you don't have Pramanagata Samshaya, you will believe what Shruti says, that you are Brahman. But what does Shruti say? I am Brahman, that I will believe. But the problem is here that how do I accept that I am Brahman? Shruti telling me, Veda telling me I am Brahman is something. Because that is a knowledge being conveyed. But if I have a feeling, feeling in inverted commas, if I have a feeling that I can't be Brahman, then there cannot be any more discussion there, right? Because all of us know that feelings can never be handled by discussion. And therefore, the faith is required. You require faith in the Pramanam. And once these two types of doubts are not there, what happens? Kshiyante asya karmani. All karmas are destroyed. Sanchita karma gets destroyed. All the past karmas get destroyed. Current karma also cannot affect you. So he is quoting from the Shastram to show us that these are the phalam of the jnana. Okay. Then we look at topic number 215. We will read. Ayam tu vyathana.
Ayam tu
Vyuthana
Samaye masam shonita mutra purishadi.
Samaye masa
Samaye
shonita mutra
Shonita
purishadi
mutra purichadi.
Bhajanena sharirena.
bhajanena sharirena
Andhya mandhya.
andhamandhya
Aputatvadi.
apatutvadi
Bhajanena indriya gramena.
bhajanena indriyagamena
Ashana pipasa shokamohadi.
Ashana pipasa shoka mohadi
bhajanena antakaranena cha
bhajanena antakaranena cha
purva vasanaya
purva purva vasanaya
kriyamanani karmani
kriyamanani karmani
bhujyamanani jnana viruddha
pujamanani jnana viruddha
arabdha phalani cha
arabdha phalani cha
pasyannapi bhadyatvat
pashyannapi bhadyatvat
parmatha tato na pashyati
paramarthato na pashyati
yathendra jalamiti
yathendra jalamiti
jnanavan tadindra jalam
jnanavan tadindra jalam
pashyanapi paramartham
pashyannapi paramatham
idamiti na pashyati.
idamiti na pashyati.
So in this long paragraph, he is telling us what is the experience after Jivan Mukti. And the long and short of it, he says that the Jivan Mukti, the Jivan Muktaha is not going to have any different experiences from the Ajnani. He will continue to experience the body. He will continue to experience all the prarabdha. So he says, I am tu. I am this Jivan Mukta. Vyutthana samaye. So Vyutthanam means transactions. Laukika vyavahara. Vyutthana samaye. When he is transacting with the world, what does he do? Sharirena. He uses the physical body. So he has to transact with the world using the sthula shariram only. And what is that sthula shariram? Bhajanena. So bhajanam is a container. It is the container of this. The physical body is the container of mamsa, flesh, shonita, blood, mutra, urine, purishadi, excreta, etc. So he says this physical body is being used, and this physical body contains all these various components which are part of the human being. And indriya gramena, also he uses not only the physical body, he uses all the indriyas also. Gram means group. Gram literally is a village. So indriya gramam is taken as village of sense organs, which means all the 5 sense organs. For our purpose, we can take it as a group of sense organs. So indriya gramena, he uses all the 5 sense organs, and they may not be in completely working condition. So he says andhyam andhyaha. They could be, the eyes could be blind or partially blind, and apatutvadi could not be very clear. Not necessarily, may have cataract. No very clear vision is there. He talks only about the eyes, but what is being conveyed is that he uses the groups of sense organs to interact with the world. And it is not necessary that the sense organs are in good shape, but whether they are in good shape or not, he is still interacting with the world. So though he talks about the eyes, we have to extend the same argument to all the sense organs. The sense organs may not be actually very functional, but even then, he will be interacting with those sense organs. What does he mean? He says, even if you are a Jivan Mukta, your body functions are not going to be 100% all the time. They will continue to deteriorate. Why? Because of prarabdha only. So he's telling us very clearly that do not think that as a Jivan Mukta, the body will be better. The body will be continuing to act on the effects of prarabdha, and whatever your prarabdha is, those effects the body will continue to experience. And he says bhajanena. So bhajanam has to be supplied everywhere. Ashana pipasa. It is a container of ashana and pipasa, thirst and hunger. So this ashana pipasa refers to pranayama kosha. So pranamaya kosha. So bhajanena ashana pipasa. At the pranamaya kosha level also this is there. Shoka mohadi bhajanena. Shoka and moha is sorrow and delusion. So this is at what level? The manomaya kosha level. And antakaranena, this is the definition of the mind. So he says all these interactions, all these emotions of all these physical feelings of thirst and physical feelings of hunger and mental feelings of shoka, that is sorrow, and moha, that is delusion, where do they take place? Antakaranena. It is in the antakaranam, and it is not the jnani. The jnani is not affected. The jnani's mind is going through all the experiences. The jnani's body is going through all these experiences, and therefore Kriyamanani karmani, the jnani does actions with the help of the sense organs, with the body, the mind, etc. But remember from Krishna's teachings, this karma is not meant for happiness. It is done out of happiness. It is done for loka sangraham, for the benefit of the world. And what does he do? Purva vasanaya. So actions which are there on account of all the vasanas which he has generated during his long sadhana, his daily actions will continue as earlier, which means that he does not change daily karma. Just because he becomes Jivan Mukta, his karma does not change. He continues to do what he has been doing earlier. So that is one point being brought across, that don't think the jnani will suddenly change. The Punjabi jnani will continue to eat paratha and lassi. The Mallu jnani will continue to eat idli sambar. But the karma continues. And when the karma continues, what happens? Bhujyamanani, he experiences. What? Arabdha phalani. So Arabdha phalani is a word often used by Shankara for prarabdha karma phalam. So Bhujyamanani Arabdha phalani, he continues to experience prarabdha karma phalam. And jnana aviruddha. So he says this jnanam is not opposed to prarabdha. They can exist together. So one set of people say that once the jnani is jivan mukta or he is God jnanam, he does not experience prarabdha karma. And this will be against your perceptual experience also. So here Sadananda is explaining that that will not going to happen. The jnani's body will continue to experience all the prarabdha karma phalam which he has to experience, which the body has to experience. And jnana aviruddha means, remember, he's telling us again that remember that Atma Jnanam is not opposed to prarabdha. They can exist together. In fact, Shankara says elsewhere in a text called Upadesha Sahasri, he says that what has provided the environment for gaining the jnanam, it is your prarabdha alone, right? Therefore, your prarabdha is a friend of jnanam and will not therefore destroy, the jnanam will not therefore destroy prarabdha. Therefore, prarabdha and jnanam can exist together. And he says, na pashyanapi, even though he perceives and experiences all the prarabdha phalam. What are they? Old age, disease, accidents, all these things will happen. But paramarthato na pashyate. Even though he experiences it, he does not look upon it as real. He sees it as mithya. It's like watching the sunset. We can see the sun setting, but we know it is not really setting. It is the world going around. So your perception is different from the understanding. And why is this so? Baditvat. Because he has negated all experiences as mithya. And an example he gives, Yatha Indrajalam iti jnanavan. When a person looks at a magic show, Indrajal is a magic show. When a person looks at a magic show, Tad Indrajalam pasyanapi, even though he sees the magic show, Paramarthatam idam iti na pasyati. He knows, he understands that what he is really seeing is only a sleight of hand. It is not really happening. So it is not Paramarthatam. It is not Satyam, he knows. It is only Mithya. It's not real at all. Now we look at topic 220.
Acharya ji, may
Yes.
I ask a question?
Yes,
So,
yes.
a Jnananishtha is in the higher order of reality, and his body is in the Vyavaharika Satyam. He knows that is why.
See, you should know that you always, as long as you got a mind, you are existing in two planes, Vyavaharika and Paramarthika. right?
Ji.
The Ajnani
Ji.
exists only on Vyavaharika because he has no understanding of what Brahman is. But the Vedantic, he has legs in both places. So there is, you are always a mixture of Anatma and Atma. That is what makes it so difficult. And therefore, while you understand that you are Brahman, remember the understanding is at Vyavaharika level only. It is your mind which is understanding. Mind is Vyavaharika. Mind is duality. So this is one critical point about Vedanta which we have to drive home in text after text. That do not ever think or ever dismiss Vyavaharika. Without Vyavaharika, there can be no understanding at all. Teaching takes place in the transactional plane. Understanding takes place in the transactional plane. You have to use that to understand that all that is mithya.
It's quite
Om
tough.
Acharya.
That is what is the most difficult part about Vedanta. That is why I keep saying that there are a lot of people who keep saying that I am doing Nididhyasanam. You are not ready. You do Nididhyasanam for the purpose of practice. But Nididhyasanam can have real meaning only if and only when this thing has been driven home into your head. That I am existing on two planes. One is Satyam and one is Mithya. But the very knowledge of my existence is there in the Mithya plane only. It is not there in the Satyam plane.
So the transactions do happen, but they stop affecting the jnani.
Again, see, a very facile use of words. What is this jnani?
The one who claims himself,
But he still got a body. That is why he's able to claim.
Mm.
and he knows that he stops identifying himself with the body.
Yes, that is the only thing you can say. But then that is Vishesha Prarabdha. You have learned to disidentify yourself from the pain given from the mental pain. The physical pain will continue.
But he disregards that physical pain as
He disregards the physical pain, saying that it is accepts it rather, because if physical pain hits your body, I am telling you, the jnani will scream as loudly as you will scream if somebody puts a knife into him. Okay, it's not that jnani will not scream. So that is called samanya prarabdha. It will work. That samanya prarabdha has to have its effects. Only the sorrow associated with that event may not be there for the jnani.
Ji.
It takes a long time for this to really sink in, which is why we say continuous process over years only will give you the. It's like that lime pickle example is the best example I can think of. It has to keep on soaking until knowledge is there in all the cells.
Om
Thanks.
Acharya,
Yes, June.
in this verse, what is the word for transactional or transaction?
Vyavahara.
Vyavahara.
Vyavahara is transactions.
But
Vyuthana is the word used over here.
Can you repeat, please?
Vyuthana.
Vyuthana. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is where it is. I'll tell you exactly. In the
The third one.
Vyuthana Samaye, that one.
Thank you.
Vyuthana means transactions. Vyavaharika transaction. Transactions in the relative world.
Okay.
So I told
Acharya.
yes, please go ahead.
May-
Rinku. Yeah.
So in Nirvikalp Samadhi and Brahmanisht at which where one Brahmanisht is existing in both the planes, what is exactly the difference? Is that Nirvikalp Samadhi is still part of Nididhyasanam only, but we go beyond the thought. So
Nirvikalpa
what's the
Samadhi
difference?
simply means that the thought is so subtle that you are not able to recognize it. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, you cannot have jnanam. Jnanam you require the mind to be functional. Which is why Vedantics don't take this Samadhi effect too seriously. You know, for the Yoga Sutra fellow, for the yogi, Samadhi is the means of liberation. For us, it is not. For us, it is only a means of having very deep concentration.
Okay.
That is the first thing that you should break out of, because most people come into Vedanta class with this yoga thing in their mind. And they keep on being confused about Samadhi. So I suggest you see the topics earlier. The last 10 topics we discussed Savikalpa and Nirvikalpa in great detail. Revise them, you
Right.
will know why we don't consider Samadhi as very important.
No, that is what that is why I was getting confused, that actually what we are is Brahmanisht only. We have to be, we are Brahmanisht, so we have to know that. But working on both the planes, like you said, is difficult. So the point of
No,
Nirvikal
you
Samadhi
can
would
do any
probably
work,
just be
you can do any work only in Vyavaharika. Any
exactly.
studying, any Samadhi, any exercise, any thinking process, all is in Vyavaharika only. How can you do anything in Paramarthika? You don't have a mind there. Paramarthika is meant for understanding that I am the Paramarthika Satyam. So that's the one point which will be very difficult, very subtle. It's difficult to understand. That is why I'm again and again in every text we will go over that only.
All right.
You
Thank
have to understand that I need the mind to understand that I am not the mind.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So yes, Khush.
Hari Om, sir.
Hari Om.
Acharya ji, is there any comparison between a true jnani and a true bhakta? Like a true bhakta tries to see everything as nothing but Ishvara. Even himself, he doesn't see any separation between him and Ishvara.
See, there is a difference between Upasana and Jnanam. So that you have to be careful about. You at
Because
the
a lot of people
Vyavaharika
say that-
level, at the Vyavaharika level, there is Saguna Ishvara. At the Paramarthika level, there is no Saguna Ishvara. So at the Vyavaharika level, there is a
Ji,
Bhakta.
because
At the Paramarthika level, there is no Bhakta.
okay, because a lot of places they say that Ramakrishna Paramhans used to see everything as nothing but Ishvara, and they
What
also
does that
claim him as a
mean?
bhakta and a jnani.
If you are not able to recognize a man and a woman, then there's a problem with your eyesight, right? So it's only understanding. It is not that somebody cannot see anybody. If I say I'm seeing only Brahman, I'm basically seeing my understanding is that everything is Brahman. But with the physical eyes, you have to see the distinction, because that is what the physical eyes are designed to show you the distinctions.
So not saying that Jagat is mithya, but actually having that understanding that Jagat is eventually mithya.
You are seeing Jagat. You are operating in Jagat. So Vyavaharically, it is very much true for you. But at the Paramarthika level, you know that it is mithya. That is the understanding. That is why I'm saying people should not rush into trying to assimilate Vedanta. It takes years. Which is why so many Prakarana Granthas we are introducing, because I found that only the texts were not sufficient. The Prakarana Granthas give you a better idea. The texts give you the basic teaching. So you have to have patience. At the end, in 2027, if you can ask me, then I'll tell you, yes, you're getting somewhere. Right now, I think it's too early to ask. So wait till
Acharya.
2027 at least.
Acharya.
Yeah, John.
I just remember that in last weekend you explained us that in some advanced yogis, Vedantis, they sometimes use the word Ishvara to refer to Brahman. So perhaps this Ramakrishna is using Ishvara as Brahman in that context, maybe? When he says that he sees everything as Ishvara, maybe he's referring to Brahman.
Ramakrishna Mission, I mean, they do have good teachers, but I have never heard of somebody from there systematically teaching. So I'm not sure actually.
Okay.
We have to have somebody who's got a teacher. Ramakrishna himself didn't have a teacher. So how in our conception, that doesn't make him a good teacher. Maybe it makes him a realized person. But for us, only a teacher who has been taught can teach. That is our definition of a teacher. Sampradaya, one who has got the Sampradaya. Okay, let's carry on. Now we will look at topic number 220. We will read. Sachakshur chakshuriva.
Sachakshura chakshuriva.
Sakarno karna eva.
Takarno karna eva.
Ityadi shrutehe.
Ityadi shrutehe.
So Sadananda gives further Shruti support. He says, Sachakshuhu achakshuriva. He is without eyes, achakshuriva, but sachakshuhu, he appears as one with eyes. So and then akarna, sakarna eva. He is without ears, but it looks as if he has ears. And what does it mean? It looks as if he has got bodies, but really speaking, he is free from all bodies. So this basically it's to talk about the Saguna Ishvara, which looks multiple in nature, but really speaking, there is no Saguna Ishvara. It is only Nirguna Ishvara alone. So he's saying that the Jivan Mukta looks like a Jivan Mukta, but really speaking, there is no Jivan Mukta at all. Because that concept itself, the Jivan Mukta concept and the Videha Mukta concept, that is relevant where? It is relevant for a beginner student only. Once you have done 5 years of teaching, if you ask, am I a Jivan Mukta? Then I will tell you, please go back to Tattva Bodha. Okay, so at one point of time, this understand, and I'm telling you, this takes years. From my own experience, it takes years of soaking in the knowledge before you accept without question that, yes, I am Brahman, and therefore, where is the question of Jivan Mukta? I've always been Brahman, so where is the question of my being liberated at all? Only if I'm in bondage can I be liberated. Okay. And then topic 221 we will read. So he is quoting from a very famous work of Shankaracharya called Upadesha Sahasri. Very, very long work. If we have the time, we do it someday. So he says Uktascha
Uttascha
Sushuptavad Jagartiyo na pasyati
Sushuptavat Jagrati Pashyati
Dvayam cha pasyanapi cha dvayatvat
Vayam Pashyanti
Tatha cha kurvanapi nishkriyascha yaha Sa atma vinyanya itiha nishchayaha
Sa Atma Vinanya
Uktam cha Shankaracharya has said, where in Upadesha Sahasri, Jagrati dvayam cha pasyanapi na pasyati. So Jagrati, in Jagrata Avastha, dvayam pasyan, having seen duality, na pasyati dvayam. He sees the duality, but he does not see the duality. What does it mean?
He sees the world
What
of
we
names and
spoke,
forms.
Vyavaharika and Parma. Sorry.
He sees, like he sees the sun is setting, but he knows the sun is not setting. So this is that peculiar language they use. He sees, but he does not see. So to understand that in Jagrata Avastha, he sees that everything is dual, because in Jagrata Avastha, everything is there. Multiplicity is there. But he understands that there is only one Brahman, and therefore he does not see any multiplicity at all. He understands there is no multiplicity. And he gives an example, Sushuptivat. So he says that Jagrata Avastha, therefore, is like Sushupti for the Jnani. What is the Sushupti Avastha for the Ajnani? In which you perceive no duality, because your mind is resolved. And therefore he says, for the Jnani, the Jagrata Avastha is like Sushupti for the Ajnani, because Ajnani does not perceive Sushupti in the duality in Sushupti, and this Jnani, he does not perceive that duality in Jagrata Avastha also. So he is saying, just as in Sushupti there is no experience of duality, in Jagrata Avastha also there is no experience of duality for the Jnani. And therefore, Yocha Dvayatvatah. But factually in both, though in one, in Jagrata Avastha there is perception of duality, and in Sushupti Avastha there is no perception of duality, But he says factually in both, in Jagrat as well as in Sushupti, there is really no duality at all. The only difference is in one you perceive, in the other one you do not perceive. But what is the fact? No duality is there in either. And that can be understood only by a person who is a jnani. And therefore, tathacha kurvanapi nishkriyascha yaha. Therefore, tathacha kurvanapi, even though he is acting in the world, yaha nishkriyaha, he is not an actor at all. He does not do any act at all. He does, even though he is doing karma in the world, he is not doing any karma because he knows that he is the akarta atma, which is not capable of karma. And therefore he says, sa atma vitu, only such a person is a jnani, na anyaha, no one else is a jnani. Itiha nischayaha. This is the teaching of all the scriptures. So scriptural teaching has been summarized. If you know that if you see that you are doing something, but you know that you are not doing anything, then only you are a jnani. Otherwise, you are not a jnani. And this is what Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, Pashyan Sridvan Sprashan, all those verses, they talk about this only. Even while doing, you understand that you don't do anything. Now we look at topic 222. Asya jnanat purvam
Asya jnanat purvam
vidyamananameva
Vidyamanameva
ahara viharadinam
ahara vihara vinam
anuvrttitvat
anuvrittitvat
shubhavasananameva
shubhavasananameva
anuvrittirbhavati
anuvrittibhavati
shubha ashubhayoho audasinyam va. So there could be a question. The jnani who knows these things, who knows that even though he is acting, he is not acting, what is his lifestyle? Because your actions are dictated by what? Usually something has to be achieved and therefore you do some karma, right? But this jnani, he has nothing more to achieve. He has no more sadhana to do. So what influences his lifestyle? So he says all the purva vasana, whatever he has been doing before attaining jnanam, what is that governed by prarabdha karma? So here he is pointing out that even though he has got jnanam, even though he has become jivan mukta, the activities will continue to be governed by prarabdha. So the purva vasana is what is governing all those activities. So he says, asya jnanat purvam. Before gaining this jnanam, vidyamananam eva, whatever activities he was doing, like what? Ahara, food, vihara, adi, recreation, etc. What will happen? Anuvrittitvat. Anuvritti means continue to do. So that he will continue to do. And shubha vasananam anuvrittir bhavati. All the shubha vasanas, all the auspicious vasanas that has been developed, how all the daivi sampatta that has been developed through all the sadguna that he has done, through all the sadhana that he has done, he would have had good habits have been developed, good vasanas have been developed. What happens to those? Anuvrittit bhavati. They will continue to be performed. All the good things that he is doing, all the dharmic activities that he is doing, he will continue to perform. And shubha ashubhayoho audasinyam va. However, though he continues to do all these activities, audasinyam, he will be indifferent toward shubha and ashubha vasanas. He will have both, but he will be indifferent to both of them. So he may have eliminated most of the asuri sampata as sadhaka, but he may discontinue some of the shubha practices also. Like, though he will do most of the practices as a matter of course because of prarabdha, he says even if he does not do any of them or partially discontinues any of them, why it does not really matter? Because he does not require those sadhanas anymore. And how do we know this? So Sadananda says that I am not saying this Sureshwaracharya says in his text, he quotes from a text called Naishkarmya Siddhi, again a very beautiful text. So we will read topic number 23. Taduktam
Taduktam
Buddha Dvaita Satatvasya
Buddha Satatvasya
Yatheshta Charanam Yadi
Yatheshta Charanam Yadi
Shunam Tattvadarshan Chaiva
Shunam Tattvadrishyan Chaiva
Ko Bhedo Shuchibhakshane.
Ubhedo Shuchibhakshane.
So these two lines are from Sureshwaracharya's Naishkarmya Siddhi, and he quotes another text also, Brahmavitam Tatha Muktva
Brahmavitam Tatha Muktva
Satmagyo Na Chetaraha.
Atmajno Cetaraha.
So this is from a text called Upadesha Sahasri by Shankaracharya. So two people he quotes. So remember that Sureshwaracharya is one of the primary disciples of Shankaracharya. So he is quoting both of them. Taduktam. It has been said. By whom? By Sureshwaracharya in Naishkarmya Siddhi, that Jnani will lead ethical life and not do any unethical activity. Why? Buddha Advaita Sattvatasya. The man who has understood Advaita as Satyam, the Buddha, he has recognized Advaita, the non-dual Brahman, as Satyam. Yatheshta Charanam Naiva. He cannot live a adharmic life. Why? Because the very Jnanam will restrain him from leading a adharmic life. And he says, Yadi. Supposing a Jnani does not, conform to this idea and leads a adharmic life, then Shunam Tattvadarshan Cha Shunam Chaiva Kabhedaha. What is the difference between such a Jnani and a dog? So Shuna is a dog. So he says, if a Jnani, after getting Jnanam, leads a adharmic life, there is no difference between a Tattvadarshi, that's a Jnani, and a dog. And Ashuchi Bhakshane. So he is talking about with regard to consuming or experiencing. Bhakshanam here means food. So a dog will eat dirty food on the road. Why should a Jnani also do something similar by experiencing unpleasant or unhealthy experiences anywhere? So there will be no difference between the Jnani and the dog if the Jnani does not follow a dharmic life. And therefore he quotes from Upadesha Sahasri also. He says, Brahmavitam Tatha Muktva Sa Atmagnaha. The Jnani is a very, very important line over here. Brahmavitam Tatha Muktva. The Jnani is the one who has renounced the idea that he is a Jnani. Very potent little line in Upadesha Sahasri. The Jnani will no longer say he is a knower of Brahman. Why? Brahmavitam. He says that I am Brahman. He no longer says that I am a Jnani, because Jnani means I know. Jnanam means there is a knower who knows the subject. And that is a Jnani. And here he says, no, this Jnani, he will no longer say I am a Jnani. He will simply say I am Brahman. So from this Jnani's point of view, I am Nitya Muktaha. Therefore, where is the question of Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti? Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti are only from the standpoint of a Jiva, not from Brahman. So, na chaitaraha, only such a person is really a Jnani, not anybody else. Very, very potent lines, capable of life-changing effects. Now we look at topic 224. Tadanim Amanitvadini Adini
Amanitvadini
Jnana Sadhanani
Jnana Sadhanani
Adveshtratavadayaha
Adveshtrattvadayaha
Sadgunascha
Sadgunascha
Alankaravat Anuvartante
Alankaravat anuvartante.
So tadanim. So if tadanim means during that time. During what time? You must remember we are talking about the Jivan Mukta. Tadanim, during the time when he is a Jivan Mukta, what happens? Amanitvadini jnana sadhanani, all the virtues, amanitvam, madambhitvam, all that there in Bhagavad Gita chapter 16, 17, which were what? Jnana sadhanani, which were the tools for achieving jnanam, and sadgunascha, and the other gunas, the other virtues like advesha, etc. Adveshta, etc. Adveshta means the one who doesn't dislike anybody. That also Krishna talks about in Bhagavad Gita. All these gunas are what? Alankaravat, are only ornaments for the jnani. They don't really matter to him at all. So all these sadgunas we were talked about in chapter 13 and 16 in Bhagavad Gita. Anuvartante, these gunas will continue in that particular body of the jnani, but he does not claim them as belonging to him. That is why he says Alankaravat. The ornaments are not mine. They are ornaments, I am wearing them. Why? Because all these gunas, all the various amanitvam, madambhitvam, adveshta, sarvabhutanam, all those gunas which you can think of from Bhagavad Gita, these will be there in the jnani, but he will not claim them as belonging to himself because they are all part of anatma only. And then we look at 225. Taduktam.
Taduktam.
Utpan atmavabodhasya.
Annatmavabodhasya.
Adveshtatvadayo gunaha.
Swadveshtattvadaye gunaha.
Atyanto bhavantasya.
Ayatto
Natu
bhavantasya.
sadhanurupinaha.
Natu sadhanarupinaha.
So it's ayatnoho, not atyanto. Ayattato bhavantasya natu sadhana rupinaha. This is a quote from Naishkarma Siddhi. So again, Sureshwar Acharya. So he says, Utpannatma avabodhasya, for a person in whom Atma Jnanam has been born, Utpannam has been born, what will happen? Dveshtatvadayo gunaha bhavanti. Gunas like Adveshta, etc. are present in him. Ayatnataha, without any effort. Yatnam means effort. Ayatnataha means there is no effort that he has to do. They are naturally present in him. Why? Earlier on you had to do sadhana to get these gunas. But now that you are a jnani, and these are the very tools which have got you that jnanam, asya natu sadhana rupini. It is no longer a sadhana for him that is required to be deliberately practiced of him. Iti Naishkarma Siddhihi. Thus it has been said in Naishkarma Siddhihi. Now we look at topic 226. Kim bahuna ayam.
Kim
Ayunaham.
Dehayatra matratham.
Dehayatra matratham.
Ichha parecha.
Ichcha parecha.
Prapitani sukha dukkha lakshanani.
Prapitani
Prapitani sukha dukkha lakshanani.
Arabdha phalani.
Arabdha phalani.
Phalani.
Anubhavanantakaranaha.
Anubhavantakarana.
Abhasadinam.
Abhasadinam.
Avabhasakasan.
Abhasakasan.
Tadavasane.
Tadavasane.
Pratyag ananda parabrahmani prane line sati.
Pratyagananda
Parabrahmani prane
sati.
Ajnana tatkarya.
Karya.
Samsara karanamapi vinashat.
Saranamapi vinashat.
Vinashat.
Param kaivalyam anandaikarasam.
Parama Kaivalyam
Kaivalyam
Anandaikarasam
Akhila Bhed Pratibhasa Rahitam
Akhila
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 Veda
Veda
Pratibhasa
Pratibhasa
Pratibhasam
Rahitam
Sahitam
Khanda Brahma Avadishthate.
Akhanda
Akhanda
Brahma
Brahma
Akhanda Brahma
Vadishtate.
Avadishtate.
So the author is winding up. He says, Kim Bahunaha. What more is to be said? Nothing is to be said. What is the essence? I am Deha Yatra Matratam Sukha Dukkha Lakshanani Arabdha Phalani Anubhavan. Which means what? I am Deha Yatra Matratham. For the maintenance of the body, Sukha Dukkham. This Jnani experiences sorrow and pleasure caused by Prarabdha. So the body is a property of Ishvara. He has to take care of it as a trustee and allow it to exhaust the Arabdha Phalam. Arabdha Phalam, as I said, is another word for Prarabdha. And this Prarabdha, he divides into three portions. He says Ichha, Anichha, Parecha. So Ichha means desirable Prarabdha, pleasant experiences. Anichha, undesirable Prarabdha, which is unpleasant experiences. And Parecha. Parecha is normally not the classification done, but Sadananda gives us interesting third classification. Parecha means someone else's wish. Something which happens to you because of somebody else's wish. And therefore it is neither Ichha nor Anichha. Neither it is desirable nor is it undesirable. But for example, you get somebody comes and does namaskara to you as a teacher. That is somebody else's desire. Parecha. You have not asked for it, so for you it is neither desirable nor undesirable. But if somebody gives you some honor, some Param Vir Chakra, something somebody gives you, Pada Puja and all that, it is somebody else's Ichha. So even while going through all these experiences, he says Antakarana Abhasidanam Abhasadinam Avabhasakasan. He remembers that he is the Sakshi of the mind and Chidabhasa. So Antakaranam is there, but he remembers that Antakaranam is the mind, which consists of the reflecting medium and the Chidabhasa. Even while going through every experience in life, he remembers that these are all experiences happening, being undergone by the mind and that is the RM and the RC. The Ahankara is undergoing the experiences, which means what? It is Jivan Mukti, right? So this particular description, Antakarana, Abhasa Adinam, Abhasaka San. Remembering that I am the Sakshi of the mind and the RC, this is called Jivan Mukti. Tada avasane, at the end of the prarabdha of that body, what happens? Pratyag ananda parabrahmani prane line sati. His prana, so prana here has a technical meaning, three bodies. So his prana, that shariratrayam, resolves into pratyag ananda parabrahmani, resolves into Brahman, which is the real inner self. And in that resolution, Ajnana Tatkaryam Samsara Karanamavi Vinashat. Ajnanam and its products. Ajnana Tatkaryam products, which are what? Samsara Karanam, which are the cause of the samskaras in his mind. Samskara Karanam. Ajnana Tatkarya Samskara Karanam. All the Ajnanam and products, because of which all the samskaras, all the thoughts in his mind exist, Vinashat. They are also destroyed. And then Param Kaivalyam Ananda Ekarasam. Param Kaivalyam, supreme non-duality, which is Ananda itself, and Ekarasam, mass, one homogeneous mass, Akhila Bheda Pratibhasaha Rahitam. Free from any duality, free from any experiences of duality is there. Remember that we are not in Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti. This is the distinction that Sadananda is pointing out. In Jivan Mukti, there are experiences of duality, perceptions of duality, but the understanding is of non-duality. In Videha Mukti, these experiences also are not there, perceptions are also not there, understanding is also not there, because Videha Mukti has no mind. And therefore, Akhanda Brahma Avitishthate is established as Akhanda Brahma. And he quotes from the scriptures. We will read the last topic, 227. Natasya prana utkramanti.
न तस्य प्राण
Natasya prana
उत्क्रामन्ति
Kramanti.
Atraiva samavaniyante.
Atrava
अत्रैव
Atraiva
समवनीयन्ते
samavaniyante.
Samavaniyante.
Samavaniyante
Samavaniyante.
Vimuktascha vimuchyate.
Vimuktascha
Vimuktascha
vimuchyate.
So he quotes Shastra in support. Natasya prana utkramanti. So this is from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. This Jivan Mukta's pranaha, the prana here means Sukshma Shariram. Utkramanti means travel. And therefore, Natasya prana utkramanti. This Jivan Mukta who has now achieved Videha Mukti, his Sukshma Shariram does not travel anymore. It resolves into Brahman, which means it is destroyed. Then Atra Ayeva Samaviyante, here itself, that Sukshma Shariram resolves into Brahman, is dissolved in Brahman. And Vimuktascha Vimuchyate, remaining as Jivan Mukta first, Vimuktaha Vimuchyate, he becomes Videha Mukta later. So with this he ends by saying, Iti Sadananda Yogindra Virachito VedantaSaara Nam Grantha Samaptam. Here ends the text called VedantaSaara, written by Sadananda Yogendra. Very beautiful text. Difficult to understand, of course, but it's very well worth revising again and again and again. We have taken a long time about it because it's a very important text. And it is not sufficient to have listened once. You must take the relative portions of Tattva and then correlate it against this text and then try to understand. And again and again and again, not just once, twice, but wherever you find the time, do that. You will find that with every revision, your understanding improves. So with this, we'll stop here. Any questions?
Oh, Acharya, I need one clarification.
Yeah.
So when we are between Jivan Mukta and Videha Mukta, if I understand it properly, then Jivan Mukta also the Ajnan Karyam, so the Sukshma Sharira is actually resolved into the
Nope.
mind because he understands.
No. Sukshma
But-
Sharira resolves means you'll be dead.
So
Sharira is responsible for the bodies to be there. Tattva I to go back to.
No,
Sukshma
that
Sharira is
I
what
understand.
primarily. Yeah, then.
That I understand, but like we normally say the Ajnan Karyam, which is the identification with the body mind intellect complex, that has essentially been understood not to be there, so he's transcended in his understanding of that.
Yes,
On
but he
the
has not.
physical plane,
Yeah.
the body will exist. Obviously the mind also exists to sustain the body, the
Yeah.
sthul shariram,
Correct.
and it is at the death of the sthul shariram that we say, like you mentioned specifically, that the sukshma sharir and sthul sharir, everything, and the karan sharir, everything it resolves, so that now there is no further birth and death. So
Yes.
so that is where my confusion. All right, I think like you mentioned, it
No,
exists on a physical
the
plane,
thing
but
is, that
intellectually,
what you understand is that wherever you bring in the word intellectual, you are talking about the intellect, which means the body is very much existing, body and mind. At the level of Videha Mukti, there is nothing. There is neither body nor mind. There is only Brahman.
but at Jivan Mukti, all three are existing. The Karan Sharir is also
Yes,
existing,
all three are
Sukshma
existing.
Sharir and Sthul
Correct.
Sharir,
All three are existing. But again, I'll repeat what I said before, that this is all mithya only. So all mithya is as good as non-existing. So these difficulty in understanding, this is the very difficult point to understand. How do you say I don't exist when I really exist? It takes a very long time to get that into your head. And that's why all the various types of Prakarana Granthas. So
But
all you
then we
need,
can also say in a Videha Mukti, because if we are Brahman, then existence, Satchit Anand is always there. So even in a
yes,
Videha Mukti, only the BMI the so-called BMI and RC goes off, Mithya goes off, but existence remains.
Existence principle always remains. Because Brahman is existence,
So I
consciousness,
will
Ananda.
always remain. I
Yes.
will always remain only on the physical plane, the Sthul Shariram, Sukshma Sharir and Karan Sharir, as we say is
No, there
Mithya.
the problem is
it
you are
is
still
not.
identifying with that. That's why you are saying I will remain and my body is gone. That's the problem. The body is not
Right.
yours. The body is one of the thousands of bodies which are in you. And from that point of view, it's like, one star bursting or dying. How does it make a difference to the cosmos? Nothing. As for you, the whole cosmos is contained within you. How does it matter whether one body goes or 10 bodies go or 1,000 bodies go? It doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you,
To
Acharya.
get that idea as, what they call subconscious thought, that is what is the whole aim of Shastram. To get the idea that I am Brahman, not at the intellectual level, at a very subconscious level, when you can look at anything which is dying and say that doesn't matter because these things will happen.
Right. Thank you.
Acharya ji, I have a question not directly related to VedantaSaara, but related to that Tuchya Rupa Asat. Can
Yeah.
I please ask?
Yeah.
So when we say Tuchya Rupa Asat and quote the example of horns of a rabbit, that we still have that imagination. So how can it be non-existent? Why is it not mithya?
Tuchya is something which doesn't exist at all.
But
If
it is still there in our imagination.
That is not called existence. That what existence is, that which you can actually perceive. So if you are thinking of things like a rabbit's horn, the most common example. No rabbit is ever born with a horn. So it's a distinguish between dependent reality and total what you call non-existence.
Acha ji.
That is the difference. There is a total non-existence and there is a dependent existence. It is a distinguish between those two that we use Tuchya and Mithya.
Ji. ठीक है.
Okay. So thank you for your patience.
Acharya ji,
Yes, June, go on.
may I ask one last question?
Yeah.
So in this last verse, we in the 226th verse, we saw that the Jivan Mukta, he's already Brahmanishta, but somehow it seems like after death, like his like Videha Mukti seems to be a more higher level of moksha.
All
I
at
know it's
Mithya level only.
yes. So it gets me confused because he's already Brahmanishta. There should not be difference
So
if
that
he
way you
has
can
a
ask,
body or not.
is an Ajnani not Brahman? Of course he's Brahman.
Yes.
You get the difference. There is no real difference between anything.
Right.
Everybody is Brahman. So there is no, from that point of view, from the point of view, a good understanding of Vedanta, you are neither Ajnani, nor you are Brahmanishta, nor are you Jivan Mukta, nor are you Videha Mukta. You are only Brahman.
Yes.
That is why you cannot say that I am a Jnani. If you understood Vedanta properly, you will never make a statement, I am a Jnani. Because Jnani means I am the knower of Brahman, which is different from Brahman. Knowing Brahman is different from being Brahman. In the method of communicating that particular language.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam
Purnamidam
Purnamudachyate Purnamada Purnamedavachyate Om Shanti
Shanti Shanti.
Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your
Sat.
patience.
Namah Shivaya.